All right, well, apparently we need to talk about Path of Exile too. So let's see what Riker has to say about this.
Hey folks, this is Riker, and we're 1 week into early access of Path of Exile 2. So, what's the verdict? Is it everything everyone hoped for, or was it overhyped? We're going to talk.
For me, it's not quite what I was expecting, because I was expecting a little more like Path of Exile 1, and it's much more difficult. It's much more difficult than I was expecting. I would say I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like it is a little less than I was expecting as far as like fun and enjoyment. I'm loving it. I still love it. I think my expectations were a little too high though. So it is only early access. So is it? Yeah, I think it's great. It's fantastic, but I just had really, really high expectations for it. But that's my own fault. I don't think it has anything to do with GGG, but yeah, I don't know.
Talk about Path of Exile 2's release week and the 2 patches we got this week with the buffs and nerfs that came with them, but we'll also cover other gaming news of the week, including highlights from the Game Awards, Ubisoft's desperate bid for survival, a new community event coming to Diablo 4, and more. And as a reminder, folks, if you need any tips or guides for Diablo 4, I have all my video content categorized on my website, Riker.com, which brings us to a word from our video sponsor.
Yeah,
I built my website using
probably cut it off
Squarespace,
once he's
and I was
done
able to do
talking
everything
about
myself,
Path of Exile.
quickly and easily,
I don't really
and
care
with
about
zero
Diablo 4.
education in the field. All
if you
thanks
guys,
to how easy Squarespace.
If you guys want to, watch the rest of the video, get his Diablo 4 stuff and all that jazz, then, get the video. I'll have it linked. So, anyways, yeah, but we're just gonna cut it off when he's done with PoE.
Spaces to work with. Squarespace even has a new AI tool called Design Intelligence, which combines 2 decades of industry-leading web design expertise with the latest AI
tools are really
tech
cool. I use
to
them a lot
empower
for work.
you to build a beautiful-looking, personalized website made exactly for your needs.
Hot take, I guess, but I think that AI is freaking awesome. It's phenomenal. I use it so much. It makes my job. I'm a marketer, so it makes my job so much easier as far as certain things, like with data analytics. I don't use it to analyze data specifically, but I use it when I'm building spreadsheets to restructure or reformat things, reorganize things, to pull information from text and to put it into a table. So if I have like a wall of text, I can just copy paste and say, hey, extract this data and put it into a table, and it's like, boom. It's so nice. It saves me a ton of time. But yeah, anyways, I really, really enjoy using AI. It's super helpful for a lot of stuff.
And your unique identity. Squarespace even has optimized SEO tools so that you can launch your website and start getting views as quickly as possible. Squarespace is flexible for any kind of website with tons of design options to pick
AI's
from.
here.
You can easily connect all your social accounts,
or you can adapt,
also upload your video content and organize your video library. You can sell products or services. And with Squarespace Payment, you have an easy way to manage your payments in one place. You're just a few clicks away from being able to receive payments through your website, all while offering customers popular payment methods like Apple Pay, ClearPay, Klarna,
I've
and
used Squarespace
ACH
in the
Direct
past.
Debit. Basically, if you want to build a website,
and
I recommend Squarespace.
Quite different.
So
that
head
looks
to
quite different than it used to be.
Riker, or click the link in the description to start your free trial and use code Riker to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/RHYKER and use code Riker.
For SEO
So we're
stuff,
1 week into the life of Path of Exile 2,
I wonder if they have any tools for that.
It's been one hell of a launch week.
Because their old tools
The game
were
launched on
garbage.
Friday, and by Sunday, the Steam concurrent player peak hit just shy of 580,000.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, that's just Steam. You know what I mean? Like, because when I was like watching on Twitch, they had like 1.1 million people watching, and I was like, man, like, and that was in the middle of the day. You know what I mean? Was it Friday that it launched on the 6th? Was that a Friday? I don't remember. But anyways, as I was looking at it on like Twitch, I was like, holy smokes! I guarantee it's gonna break 1 million concurrent players. And it broke, over 500,000 for Steam, but counting in like the launcher and on consoles and stuff, I guarantee it broke 1 million. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
And that's just on Steam, not counting console players or people using the dedicated launcher like me.
See, exactly.
So I think the real number was easily 1 million. The game has received very positive user reviews on Steam, and on OpenCritic, it has a top critic average score of 87 out of 100, with 100% of critics recommending the game. And
See,
while
and
this
that's the
is
thing
not
is
yet
that
my review,
people are
I
complaining,
will
but they're
give the
still
game
rating
my
it
endorsement.
highly.
People ask me,
Yeah,
is
see?
PoE 2 worth it? And for me, yes, it has been 100% worth it so far. I'm just about to get into the end game, but even if
Well,
I
he's
were to
doing the
start
minion
hating
build.
the game at that point, which
So of course-
I doubt is
of
going to
course
happen,
he's
but
enjoying
even if it
it.
were the case, I've still thoroughly enjoyed my journey there, and it's you get a ton of hours of fun and entertainment just in the campaign. I will hang one caveat, however. I fully recommend this game to any ARPG fan who is willing to take on a challenging gameplay experience.
Exactly.
It's not quite Dark Souls, but it is the most challenging ARPG out there, apart from No Rest for the Wicked, which is full-on Dark Souls.
Yeah, I've never played
So
Rest for the
if you're
Wicked.
open to a slower-paced, more challenging experience, then PoE 2 will scratch your itch. But one thing I knew from the moment I first tried PoE 2 at ExileCon in 2019 to when I tried it again at Gamescom last year was that PoE 2 would not be for everyone. That a lot of PoE 1 players who want the zoom
And that's
blow up
okay.
entire screens
I
of
think that's
enemies in a
important to
millisecond
understand
while
that it's
dropping
okay
enough
if it's
loot
not
to
for
cause
you.
a NASA computer to seize up if you don't have a loot filter running. That kind of gameplay. Yeah, people who are into that, probably not going to be too into PoE 2. And that's why I was
Even
so
with
smart
loot
of
filters,
GGG to
it's
continue to support
crap
PoE
everywhere.
1 and have both games coexist as their own separate entities because they each offer very different experiences and can make different groups of players happy. PoE 2 is basically the best realization of PoE's Ruthless mode. A mode that wasn't
that's a
exactly
good point.
popular in PoE 1, but it works so much better with the new
Did any of you actually play Ruthless? I've never played Ruthless mode. I always just, played the standard league, and I didn't do hardcore. I'm probably gonna do a little bit of hardcore once they iron some things out, because I'd hate to get into hardcore and then have a build and then have them nerf the builds. You know what I mean? Like just happened to some people. So I might give that a shot, but I never did Ruthless. But is Ruthless just it's just more difficult and less drops? I never spent I didn't really pay attention to it, so I don't really know. But yeah, if this is what Ruthless is like, then
new combat
that
engine.
That makes sense.
I had zero interest in Ruthless and PoE 1, but I'm loving PoE 2. One of the game's greatest strengths is its boss designs.
Oh
so
my
many
gosh,
bosses,
yes.
each unique both visually and from
so
a gameplay
good.
perspective.
So good.
Each has its own tricks you gotta learn to best counterplay them. I'm comfortable with the current level of challenge in the game. I've seen some people call for nerfs to difficulty, especially
Again,
at the
minion
start.
build.
But honestly, the start being a slap in the face is exactly the message that needs to be sent. This is not an easy game. Being coddled early game only to then
This
get
ain't your
stuck
grandma's
at the Act 1
ARPG.
boss out of nowhere, that would be a more frustrating experience than getting a nice slap in the face early on telling you that you're gonna have to get good. And I feel that the game actually gets easier
Exactly.
as
It's
you
kind
go.
of like the the first boss in Elden Ring, and then the oh my gosh, the tree sentinel. In the first area, you come out and you're like, oh, maybe I can take it. Nope. Nope. Definitely setting expectations correctly there.
Go along. From a practical standpoint, replaying the campaign on Cruel was easier than playing it on Normal because my build was really starting to come together at that point. I was optimizing my gear and my skill setup. Again, though, I am about to start mapping, so we'll see if my impression changes at that point. I'm loving the updated skill system, doing away with gear sockets. Such a great change.
Yeah, the gear sockets is a really good change. The one thing that frustrates me about the support gems is you can only have one support gem of that kind in use. That honestly annoys me because I would love it. Limits your build, it limits what you can do with your builds, right? Because there are. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm doing SRS. I respect to fire damage. Because I'm just doing SRS with fire damage. I'm not even worrying about chaos damage anymore. I'm like, screw it, I don't even care. My other little minions can just be cannon fodder. But what I do with my SRS build is the same thing I did in PoE 1 with SRS, which is I turn my spirits into little homing missiles, right? So you use Infernal Legion, so they burn and they take 20% of their health as damage every second, and they create that aura of fire. And then I use instability or whatever, minion instability, where they blow up and then they deal a certain amount of health as well. But I want to do that on not just my normal minions. I want to do that on my Unearth, and I want to do that So not only the spirits, so got that on spirits. I want to do it on my unearthed minions and on my skeletons on my scepter. So that way I literally have an army that is constantly aura burning people and exploding all over the screen. That's what I want to do, but I can't do it because I can only have one of each support, which is to me frustrating. I don't really like that. But anyways, yeah.
Spirit works wonderfully as an extra resource. Mana reservation, it was an interesting idea in theory, but in practice, the way it worked out just wasn't very fun. Now, one big complaint I'm seeing from players, or I was seeing, was about drop rates for loot and currency items. I actually was fine with the way things as they were,
jack the crap out of your
I have to admit I got some really lucky drops. If you've either seen my stream or my highlight video is going to be coming out hopefully tomorrow, you'll see some of my luck there. I got some really juicy drops, but I think one thing that I'm really liking about the loot system altogether is that I'm really happy that we don't need a loot filter. But within a couple of days post-launch, the devs released a patch that actually improved drops in a number of ways, including a sort of unlucky drop protection, you can say. And preliminary results have been very positive.
See, I haven't been seeing that. Have you guys been seeing, because you're supposed to be getting a rare guaranteed from every rare monster. I haven't been seeing that. I've been getting a lot of rare monsters where it's nothing but blues and gold. Maybe I'm getting like rare gold drops, but I'm seeing more rares, definitely more, but I'm not seeing a rare for every monster. So I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting...
It has had a ripple effect onto other criticism of the game as well, because more loot and more currency means people are better able to tackle the difficulty, they're better able to engage with the crafting system, and just otherwise...
Especially the currency.
And it definitely was the right idea to start off with loot undertuned, then overtuned. Nerfs to loot are never taken well. But one pain point I see brought up,
like drug addicts,
that
right?
so far I kind of agree with, is Ascendancies.
Wean people off of something that they're used to.
Getting your Ascendancies. The trials are frustrating.
Oh my gosh,
they're unforgiving, and
nuts.
you can easily fail at the very end, losing your entire run.
So annoying.
I failed on my second Ascendancy trial, so I did the first one, I got my first 2 points. On my second one, I died right at the end against the boss, and now I'm just waiting to be massively overleveled before trying again, because I'm loving the rest of the game.
Yeah, that literally is exactly what just happened to me, because, again, I'm not playing all day, every day like these full-time streamers do, but like I just tried my second Ascendancy trial. I died in the 3rd round, and it's like 10 rounds. I'm like, oh my gosh, I died in the 3rd round, and it's like, what do I do? So at that point, I was like, man, now I just don't want to play. Like after I lost, I was just like, I just don't want to play, because I was thinking about my build. I'm like, okay, I can respec a little bit, but then I have gear. I'm like, the biggest thing I need to work on is my gear. So I have to go back and grind old areas. But like, as far as grinding for gear and getting level ups, like because of how, if you're over leveled for an area, your XP, you gain less XP. Like it's a decreased multiplier, right? Like you take like, I don't know, it is half XP or something like that. So I'm getting less XP for grinding that area than even the low XP that I'm getting already. So no XP for leveling, and then I have to hopefully, get some good drops for gear and then probably craft it. And it's just like, it feels like the grind for gear combined with the respec cost, it doesn't, it feels like it takes too long. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but like the 3 of those things have to work together. Your gold drops, your currency, the equipment drops, and the crafting stuff. Like all that stuff needs to balance each other, right? Because if you don't have a lot of gold to respec and you don't have any currency, or you're bricking items, right, when you're trying to craft, and the items that you're crafting aren't actually, you're not getting what you need, then it's frustrating. So, and then you're like, well, now what do I do? I don't have a path to power. So I don't know. The Ascendancy trials, first one was, I don't like the honor in it. Second one is really difficult. I don't mind difficulty, but I just don't see a clear path to progression without just grinding the same freaking map over and over again, hoping for new equipment. So I don't know, man. I don't know. That's something I think they need to work on, is the balance on that a little bit.
I'm loving the rest of the game too much to spend a good chunk of my game time doing something that doesn't bring me joy. And right now, I just don't feel like the trade-off in power that I would get from those 2 points is enough to put up with the extra frustration that I'm going to feel going through that again.
Yeah,
then add on to this that at later levels, Ascending is locked behind the RNG of actually finding a key to run the trial, and then that key is wasted if you fail. And yeah, I never thought I would, but I actually
why would it be wasted?
Kiwi 1's Labyrinth.
That's
Outside of that,
ridiculous.
I've seen criticism of the campaign length. Not that it's a problem that it's long, but that part of the reason it's long is because zones are just absolutely enormous and they take forever to get through, especially due to the general move speed in PoE 2 being pretty low and the removal of most mobility skills.
I'm not a huge fan of the movement
I'm not in favor of adding back in mobility skills and high-speed movement. Don't get me wrong, this is pretty contrary to how I normally feel in games. I love to zoom, I love mobility, I love movement skills, but we don't want to trivialize the best content in PoE 2, which is the bosses, and they're designed and balanced around players not being able to just easily run circles around them, evading all their attacks. That said, it does feel a little unfair that our move speed is so slow, yet the speed of even just normal monsters can be so fast that sometimes we can't even keep away from them.
I will say, though, one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of times if you're just moving backward, their attack animations for like the little mobs that are fast, if you just are moving backwards while attacking or casting, you walk out of their attack range. So they run up to you as you're walking backwards, they begin their attack animation. And if you keep moving, a lot of times you just move out of their range. So they run up, they attack, and you just, it's like this, you know, this whole stagger thing, right? And they don't hit you. Not all mobs, but there's a good chunk of them that you just, as long as you're moving backwards, they won't hit you. So
just feels like there's no counterplay when monsters are so fast that they can surround you even when you're dodge rolling away. Like they come up to you, you dodge roll, and they're so fast that by the time you're even done dodge rolling, they've surrounded you again.
They've already caught up.
But again, I did enjoy my campaign playthrough.
That's actually okay. That's another thing. I've noticed when you dodge roll away, you get away quickly, but by time you're done with the dodge roll, because the guys are already on top of you, they begin their attack animation before you can really dodge again, you know what I mean? So I've had situations where I stopped dodging just to run because running was a more effective way of dodging. Because after I dodge, then I'm vulnerable because I'm so slow at the end of that dodge roll. It's just, yeah. So there are situations that I've run into where dodge rolls actually are worse than just running away.
Sure, there were a couple zones where I'm like, ooh, this is a really big zone. Some trimming, you know, wouldn't hurt here and there. I hear maps as well. Endgame mapping, really big.
I can't wait for the checkpoint teleportation to be a thing. I am definitely looking forward to that.
All the monsters in a zone respawn. And if you're not a good checkpoint, then you basically have to work your way back through a ton of trash mobs.
I really don't mind that. I'm totally cool with just having all the monsters respawn. That's not a problem. If anything, it gives me more opportunities for loot. I mean, I obviously, if you're dying on the same thing over and over and over again, it can get annoying. But honestly, this is a non-issue for me.
The thing that I really wasn't sold on, I totally understand. You die against a boss, okay, it resets, you got to redo the whole boss fight again. Sure. But for every monster in a zone to respawn, that just kind of feels like a really weird punishment because it's not a challenge to go through all those monsters again, it's just costing you time. And again,
one other thing I've noticed though, if you die on like a rare monster at a checkpoint, near a checkpoint, I've noticed that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when I respawn at the checkpoint, that rare monster is gone. It didn't respawn. So I wonder if the rare monsters don't always respawn in the same spot, or if it's just more likely that it is. Because sometimes when you enter a map on a new instance, that rare monster is always in the same spot. Like friggin' the level where you fight that giant bone monster, the fire bone boss. I don't know the name of the level. I don't know the name of the boss. But it's like towards the end of Act 2. There's a certain monster at the entrance when you go in. It's really fast. It's always there. It's always rare. But if you die to it when you respawn, it's gone. So I don't know if it's like a mercy mechanic built into it where sometimes the monsters don't respawn or certain monsters don't respawn because they know how difficult it is. But I don't know. It's happened to me a number of times.
In endgame mapping, it's even worse because if you die one single time in a map, you lose the map entirely. You fail.
I thought
you lose the key.
I thought they changed
Good day,
that.
sir. And
I
given
thought
how
that in
big maps
endgame when
are
you're
and how
mapping,
long it
if you
takes to
die, you can
complete
go back
them, it's a
now.
lot of time a player needs to spend
I thought they did
paying
something about that.
100% attention to the game because the
I
slightest
definitely could
lapse
be
in
wrong.
vigilance can mean a quick death
not at
that
endgame,
wastes
so.
the whole run and map key. Oh, and related, loot despawning if you die. Man, is that a feels bad moment. Imagine
I
you
didn't
kill a tough
realize that.
monster, you see a unique drop, then there's some
But I always pick up the
post-death
crap
explosion
because I'm
that
afraid of
instantly
that.
kills you.
If I see something, I go pick it up
Ouch.
immediately.
The unique is gone, whether in campaign or in maps. And on that topic, I complained about these in Diablo 4. I'll complain about them in Path of Exile 2. Post-death revenge mechanics are not fun. I've not seen a lot of them in PoE 2, thankfully. But once you have defeated the monster, you feel really satisfied. You're past the climax of the moment.
Death
It's
effects.
a release of tension. The
on
danger
death
is
effects.
past.
Yeah.
And then boom, a surprise FU from the game.
Absolutely.
It just results in
the worst.
players
That's stupid.
feeling like they need to be constantly paranoid. And it interrupts the typical emotional reward loop of defeating a monster and overcoming a challenge. We had these
'cause some bosses
post-death
have,
monster
like,
one-shots in
death
PoE1
animations
because the extreme
where they're like
pace of the
flailing
game
around and stuff. I
basically
always run away from
required
that because I don't know
Without
if it's
that,
actually
nothing
going to hurt
really
me.
kills you. So we had to have those to retain
But
some
it's true.
element of
There's
danger.
that sense of relief
But
isn't
in
there.
PoE2, every fight is dangerous. Every fight can kill you. So it seems we don't really need to have these extra FU on death revenge mechanics.
I
On a
honestly
somewhat
haven't
related
noticed a
note,
lot of them. There's
monsters
some, but
and
I
especially
haven't noticed a
bosses,
lot.
they have their attacks really well telegraphed.
Yeah.
But sometimes the visual noise, especially if you're running a minion build like I am, I got all my an army of
pain is
minions,
real.
and I'm summoning a bunch of
All the visual
firewalls. There's
clutter
just so much
from-
stuff on
from
screen.
minions.
It can make it tough
SRS
to
is
read
so
the
bad for that.
battlefield in a
Especially
game where
when
it's
they're
really
exploding.
important to
It's
read the
just
battlefield.
it's just nuts.
And I've also found myself confused by the environments at times,
Flame
like
wall
getting stuck
SOS
on
or
invisible walls and not
SRS.
understanding why my character's not moving, because sometimes the walls don't look like walls. Like there's a shallow pond.
Or sometimes the
and
paths
I don't
look like
understand that my
walls and they're
character
not.
can't
Like in those
actually
areas
take
with
a
the big
step
trees,
in an
it
inch
looks
of
like
water.
you can't walk through the roots, and then oh my
So I
gosh,
always
it's
have to be
actually a
looking at
path.
the overlay map or the mini map in the corner in order to ensure that I understand where the walls are.
Yeah.
Not a huge
And I
deal
remove all
until you're
that,
getting surrounded by
extra
monsters
crap off
and
of my
wondering why is
map.
my character not moving away.
all
now
the
again,
like
while I've
landscape
thoroughly
stuff,
enjoyed
I
my
turn that
campaign
transparency
playthrough,
off.
I
So I just see
am
the
not
lines.
exactly eager to repeat the experience on multiple other characters. And I know this is a point of contention in the PoE community. I know some people in the
I don't have a
community have
problem
been
with it.
asking for a campaign skip button for years, but I know
That's not
others
gonna
feel the
happen.
campaign is an important and integral part of the game and should not be
I'm
skipped.
in that camp.
And I'm not going to
100%.
say what the devs should
not
or
be able
should
to
not
skip
do
the
here. I'm not
campaign.
going to say add a campaign skip. What I will say is I am less
Because
likely
there's
to
certain
make
things
another
you
character.
get, and that's okay. That's the thing is like, especially with PoE 2, there are certain things you get from all of the monsters and as rewards from the campaign that you would not get. Like, how would they implement a campaign skip and get you all of those rewards? I don't know of a good way to do that without just thrusting it onto you. Like, you gain certain things at certain points in the campaign at certain levels. Like it's part of the balancing of the character progression. So I don't know how they would do anything different. I think they just need to keep it the way it is.
Because the thought of playing through the campaign again is daunting. Again, I really enjoyed my playthrough, but I also really enjoyed the Netflix series Arcane.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like watching it again
Don't want to
right
do it
now
again.
because
I understand that.
I've already
I
watched
get
it.
the feeling, especially when it takes
But
this
anyway,
long.
in that same patch that buffed item and currency drops, the devs also implemented more checkpoints in big maps and the ability to teleport between
still
checkpoints you've
can't
already
teleport.
discovered, which actually hugely addresses
I've tried.
a lot
I
of
cannot do it.
the,
I'm
the
clicking on
complaints
it. I don't know
surrounding
what.
the size
I don't
of
know why.
maps and the respawning
I could be done.
monsters.
I am
you don't
brain
have to
dead,
full clear a
but
map again if you can just teleport forward to a checkpoint.
Can't teleport yet.
There's a great way
Or I
to
don't know
resolve the issues people were bringing up without like increasing move speed, for instance, or giving us mobility powers. And another complaint that the devs addressed with this patch was about the dodge rolls. People were complaining about getting surrounded by monsters too easily and not being able to dodge roll out of them. This was especially silly
on team dodge
when you
roll.
were surrounded by a ton of like tiny monsters like those little beetles, and it just feels like your character should be
Gets
able
stuck.
to
Yeah.
just like step over them. Anyway, they've made changes to the dodge roll so that
those are some pretty big beetles. I don't know about stepping over
could
them.
more easily dodge roll through small gaps in enemy groups.
Yeah.
And we can now push back small monsters when we dodge roll.
We need
excellent
a phase.
Changes
I
excellent
swear,
changes everywhere. In fact, the whole patch.
The casters
just
need a
huge
phase
win.
ability.
Again, addressing pretty much all major
passive
criticism
in
of
one
the
of
game.
in their ascendancies.
And so
that would be
quickly as
dope.
well. That's the most surprising part. They didn't even wait a week. Now, the patches didn't just bring buffs, we also had nerfs to some skills and interactions. Some of them came in hotfixes, actually. We got nerfs to gas grenades and gas arrows setting off explosions. Magnetic salvo was nerfed, supercharged slam. But the deepest cut for a lot of people came in another patch later this week. Cast on X builds were gutted.
Yep.
Which killed a popular cast on freeze build that had emerged.
Dude,
making
that thing
it
is
deal
sick.
basically 90%
So
less damage
sick.
and effectively
But
bricking the
understandable.
progress
I
of
know why
players
they-
running that setup.
know
I'm
why they
fully
cut
in
it.
favor of nerfs in early
That's
access.
fine.
That's the whole
Yeah, yeah.
point. We're testing balance. But I did expect people who were affected to get a free
Well, I mean, because
respec.
the thing about yes, the free respec is an absolute must. But the thing is, in early access, like I think the most important thing in an ARPG with as much variability and as many options as PoE is that they need to make it so as many builds are viable as possible. They need to make it so that, you know, if a player creates their own build, they have the tools to experiment and test and try things out pretty freely. Because if you're going up against a boss and your build just it isn't working, or like the Trials of Ascendancy and your build just doesn't work because of the way the trial is built, you need to have the flexibility to make those changes. So the goal is the maximum number of viable builds. So the ability to do that. And the problem is, if you have like one or two builds that are just absolutely phenomenal, like they crush everything, then that kind of destroys the whole idea of doing your own viable build, because I'm assuming they would kind of increase the difficulty to offset these like super powerful builds. But then there's the other side. It's like, well, just because it's available doesn't mean you need to use it. But then it's like, it makes every other build feel negligible. It's like, if you're not doing this Ice Comet build, then what are you doing? You're stupid. Like, it's the best build you should be doing. There's always going to be metas, but I think the distance, if the power difference between the best build and, you know, the next 5 to 10 best builds shouldn't be ginormous. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be like a huge gap. People should feel like they can achieve great things and almost game-breaking things by doing their own builds. Maximum number of viable builds, in my opinion. So I have no problem with them nerfing this, because it will force people to experiment and make changes. But it sucks. They need to give a full skill tree respec, like Riker was saying here. So I 100% agree with that side of it, at least.
They haven't stockpiled a bunch of gold and extra gear.
Yeah,
they can't
there's
respec.
just not, you can't
Some people
respec,
are advocating for making all respec free during early access. I don't think that's a good idea, because GGG needs to test how people feel
they
about
need to
respec
give players
costs.
the flexibility to
But
adapt.
yeah, some system
especially
where
with a game this difficult.
Skill X got nerfed,
Like, it's
all
okay
builds
for it
using
to be
Skill
hard,
X automatically get a
but
full
if something's
respec.
not working,
Respec
you
was
need
a
to
real
give them
issue
the
for new
tools
players in
to
PoE 1.
be
Farming Orbs of
flexible and
Regret was
change. It can't
easy
be
for advanced
builds
players
can't be
in
super
endgame,
rigid.
but impossible for new players early in the
It's
game.
important to have some
A
rigidity.
new player would easily brick their
but
first character and have to
you
start
need
a new one.
flexibility for something
Now,
like this.
with respec being governed with gold, I did a ton of respecking at low level. But
Because here's the thing, if you don't provide flexibility for players, they will break. And a broken player is a player who doesn't play anymore. They're no longer a player. They will leave. You can't let players break themselves. You need to allow flexibility so people can adapt and change as they learn. New players need the ability to learn. If you don't give them the ability to learn, they will not stay. Because of everything that Riker's been saying before about the length of the campaign and how he doesn't want to do another campaign. You know, like, I was weird because in PoE 1, I was like beating my head against the wall and trying again and again, new build, new build, new build. But most people aren't like that. You need the flexibility to make changes with the character you've invested 60, 70, 80 hours into, because if it's not working, you need to be able to use what you have to rebuild your character in a way that does work. But I also agree that you shouldn't be able to completely just rebuild it from the ground up whenever you want. There's gotta be a balance of rigidity with flexibility. You need both. And right now it's too freaking rigid.
I see some people saying that the high-level respec is way too expensive. I'm not there yet, so I can't weigh in myself, but
yeah, right now it's about
it seems we have
1,000
now the opposite problem that we had in
1,000 per
PoE1.
passive. I'm at
Now,
like
speaking of
level
respec,
39,
the
40.
passive tree. One thing I'm finding is that I'm spending a lot of my points just grabbing attribute nodes. It feels like, in general, attribute requirements are really high in PoE2. I also feel like PoE1 had more interesting nodes to path to in the tree. Well, I do find stuff that is good for my build. It's not that I run out of things that I need. I just don't find a lot of that stuff to be really exciting. The way like PoE1 would have some really build-changing stuff that you'd be excited to path
I would say
towards.
that's true.
And because of the steep attribute requirements, it
like I
would
haven't
be
even
nice
been looking
to have
at like
an
the
easier
major
way
nodes,
to get
the really big
lower-level
ones.
skill gems.
They're not.
Like if I have a level 13 uncut skill gem, that should allow me to craft any skill gem up to level 13, in case I need one that has lower stat requirements. Currently, I'd have to go to some lower level zone where I would just guess that it's going to drop that level of gem, and I have to spend a bunch of time farming there. Now, one concern I have is about the balance between trade and non-trade players. In PoE1, you had a lot of robust crafting options, such that if you were to be solo self-found, you could still get a lot of the gear that you need through deterministic crafting. But now in PoE2, we're largely at the mercy of RNG with our crafting. As far as I can tell, we actually don't really have any deterministic crafting options, or at least nothing robust, which means that trading is going to be even more powerful in PoE2.
Because in PoE1, you could craft like 4 very specific things. You could
it's just something
specifically choose to put movement speed on your boots.
I'm currently fine with crafting options available to us. And I do like that we've actually done away with obscure vendor recipes that you need to memorize or reference external guides for, but I sometimes find myself wondering how much easier my playthrough would be if I engaged with trade.
But it would be really nice if you could buy currency with gold. I haven't really thought about that too in depth, but because in PoE1, like you can trade up, like you trade currency for currency, and I know you can do that on the open market with other players, but at the normal vendors in the NPCs, you could actually trade currency there and get the orbs and crafting materials that you're looking for by trading currencies. I don't know, because you can buy identification scrolls from vendors, but nothing else. I wonder if that would just totally break things. But then you'd have to increase gold, and I don't know. Random thought, I don't know how well it work. I'm not entirely sold on my own idea, but I wonder how that would possibly affect things.
Then one topic of discussion I'd like to have right now with you folks. It seems as though there's a general consensus that there's an imbalance in difficulty between melee play and ranged play. People say melee is really fun, honestly, but that it is a much greater challenge. And the question I want to raise is that okay? Should both melee and ranged playstyle be equally challenging, or is it okay to have melee be a sort of challenge mode? Like, do we want all playstyles to be equally challenging, or should some be easier and some harder for players who are looking for either an easier or a harder time?
This is something that Asmon talks a lot about, is built-in difficulty changes. Like, it's not like changing the difficulty of the game, but you can, by the way you play the game, it changes the difficulty itself. Like in Final Fantasy 16, there's rings that you can put on that make the game just a heck of a lot easier. But it's they're items you equip in the game. It's not a difficulty slider. I don't know, because my thought was like, I'm not sure, because some people just prefer melee builds, you know what I mean? And then it's just not their playstyle. They're not ranged players. Equally difficult. Should it be equally difficult for each class? That's a great question. I'm not sure. I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I have no idea. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, because it makes sense that it would be, but that just punishes the people who like that play style. If they just think it should be more difficult, it just punishes those players. But people are really good at making things difficult by implementing their own like little restrictions on themselves to make things challenging. Like games that don't have a hardcore mode, or like in Pokemon doing a Nuzlocke or something like that. Like there are little things that people make up, but I don't know. Part of me says yes, that it should be more difficult for each class. Kind of like some games, MMOs and stuff like that, actually have a difficulty rating on each character that you can choose from. But I don't know. I actually think that there should be an easy mode of each one and a hard mode of each one. Like with Melee, there should be a Melee character that is easier just based off of the nature of the character, but I don't know how they would do that in this. I don't know. That's a great question, though.
And I'd like your thoughts on that. Sound off in the comments. Oh, one nitpick I have. Why does it take so long to load the map?
Exactly.
Why do we have a little? Oh my God. Why do we have a literal loading screen for the map? Oh, and don't get me started on the M key bringing up the shop.
It takes forever.
I had to change that hotkey. Kept pressing it accidentally.
Gosh. I get a load screen every time I open the freaking map.
Another nitpick. They've changed the order of affix tiers.
Go away. That'll
in
go
PoE
away.
1, a tier 1 affix is the best, and higher numbers are progressively worse. Now it's the other way around. Tier 1 are the worst, and higher numbers are better.
Tier 1
I don't
should
really
be the best.
care what order it goes into, except for the fact that it was easy to know in PoE 1 if you had a max affix item, because tier 1 is the max. Now, different affixes have different max tiers, so you have no way of knowing if, say, tier 6 is the highest tier on this affix.
Yeah, see, that doesn't make any
having
sense.
to consult some external website. So something as simple as just showing tier 6 out of 6.
Exactly.
In the tooltip, that would solve
exactly
this.
what I was
I'm guessing
thinking.
they deliberately reverse the order now so that they can always choose to add power creep options
it
of
should
higher
show you what
tiers
the max
later on.
tier is.
Now again, though, everything we've said here, I need to stress, I have been absolutely loving my playthrough of PoE 2, and I endorse the game. Any negatives or concerns that I'm bringing up here, they're not reasons to dislike the game, they're not reasons that I dislike the game, I don't dislike the game. We are in early access, and the point of early access is to give feedback so that the game can be as close to perfect as possible at launch.
Hate and feedback are
now
not
is
the
the
same
time to
thing.
give that feedback. All right, on to some Diablo news. We got the reveal of the Ride to Hell holiday event, which will run from...
I think he's just doing Diablo stuff. Yeah, Diablo 4. Okay. Yep. So, yeah, man. I agree with a ton of the stuff that he said. I like some of his solutions. I am on board with a lot of it. I don't know about the whole, like, difficulty by character kind of thing. Should melee characters be difficult as opposed to, like, the ranged characters just being kind of easy mode? But I agree that by the game design, there should be certain things that make it more or less difficult depending on what the player wants to do. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts, guys. If you like what you saw, then go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe. Give me some feedback. I just started doing videos, and so far, getting some good feedback. So if you liked it, you enjoyed it, you want more, let me know, and I'll keep making more. I wasn't planning on doing a whole lot of videos, but I'm getting some good feedback from you guys, so I appreciate that. Like, follow, subscribe, whatever they say at the end of these videos, and I will catch you in the next one. All right.